Hello, Chris. I'm happy to see you because that means we're doing some dragon stuff.
We are. What a lovely day today, Arnold.
Is it?
What a lovely day.
Yeah.
Yep, we're here back with hopefully our enthusiastic viewers or those that have accidentally clicked onto the site.
I'm
And if we can
sorry.
keep them here. And oh, it's a special day today. You knew that, of course, didn't you?
No, I don't. Why?
Well, let's just say, how about I give you a clue? I'm waiting for the postman to deliver my birthday card from you. Oh, no.
It's your
Oh,
birthday
great. You
today?
haven't done.
No.
Correct. And
No.
this is my dedication to the group.
I cannot believe
Dedication.
this.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Happens
Happy
to everyone
birthday, Chris.
once
What
in every
the heck?
300.
He didn't tell me anything about this. I
I
cannot
gave you a
believe
choice of
this.
days to do this recording. I said, please don't pick my birthday. And you picked it. The first time we've ever done a Thursday, I think, probably. Anyway, not to worry. The main thing is users, they're thinking, do we ever get any chess on the board? And we absolutely do. We have got the Sicilian defense, and I'm going to show you kind of a couple of games, if that's okay, everybody. So welcome. Sorry for the initial waffle, but now we're getting down to some nitty gritty. Now, for those that don't really know, we've been doing these for quite a while now. We're over a couple of years now. And what I usually do is I bring you a dragon game off you, often which have been played in the last month. When I do my chess publishing website, I pick 6 games of chess that have been played pretty much strictly in that previous month, and that usually the top players games, but the theoretical ones are ones that should be of interest. Here we branch off a little bit
Mhm.
and do sometimes occasionally fun things, even historical games, but still it's the focus is on most recent games and theory. And when I search these games, Hannah, I find what is interesting. There are bucket loads of blitz games. You know, these titled Tuesdays Blitz. Everybody's happy to play the dragon in blitz games. I mean, ridiculous amount of games. Top players always do it, but of course they're a little bit more nervous about playing it in the slow play games. But they love to play it in the blitz. However, whilst I don't pay as much credence to the blitz games, I am very aware that when the top players are playing, they come up with some pretty nifty chess. And I'm
Mm.
going to give you a perfect example of this in the main game that we're featuring today. Okay,
All right.
this and it's a blitz game, and the reason I want to show it to you is because the other thing about the dragon, as you know, it's no longer just the Yugoslav attack with 9 castles or 9 bishop c4 or 9 g4. There's a lot of these little side variations, as we know, the Hungarian, the Dragodorf, the accelerated Dragadorf. Your favourite one, of course, the Vietnamese. I say your favourite one with a
It
100%
is. It
record that you
is. Yeah,
have.
exactly.
So that, and I want to show you today a genuine, a kind of modernly Dragodorfy game, which just flows so simply in a blitz game. Anybody, I think, pretty much any of our viewers will be proud to have played it in a slow play game. Absolutely for sure, because it flows wonderfully and it all makes perfect sense.
All
So,
right.
and the first thing that happened in this game is the move g6
No,
occurred. And as we know,
the
as you know only
sacrilege.
too well, and as no, but as one of your somebody commented, when I play this move order, which I do, it's a very sneaky move order to get the dragon without white being able to do the bishop b5 check line, of course, because if we rewind, bishop b5, that would just be hunted down by black's pawns on the queen side. So that's not really possible here. Obviously, there are other possible moves. White could go c4 from Roxy Bind or c3. But if they're determined to get their normal open Sicilian like this, then it means they weren't going to play the bishop b5 anyway. There's a logic flaw somewhere along the line there.
All
But you
right.
know what I mean. If this is their second in priority to bishop b5. So here we go and we get a normal Sicilian dragon. But before we crack on, oh my word, with this game of chess here, I'm going to do one slight deviation. So it's just one game. We're going to slowly look at one game today. But one deviation, and I'd like to congratulate you, Anna, because you have become a trendsetter. Yes. Elsewhere this month, I saw a game with the 2509 rated Delgado Ramirez.
No freaking
Following you
way.
in your footsteps. Yes, Anna.
No
H1,
way.
Queen D2, E5. Following you. Everyone said, I like that style. I like your style. So for every all of our viewers, basically, you'll know that we've been talking about the Vietnamese
Oh.
variation. And what happened in the Vietnamese variation typically is black would play the move E5 here. and then they would take this opportunity to get their bishop to e6 in a priority to going h5 because they wanted to stop the bishop going there. That's kind of what we kind of reached, didn't we?
Exactly.
Not the white's always going to do that, but that's a possibility. So that's one of the reasons for playing maybe e5 rather than h5. But no, other people have decided, no, Anna, we are not worried about bishop c4. We're going h5 because after queen d2, which is probably the more automatic move
Yeah.
over bishop c4 because it's more flexible, then e5 is going to transpose anyway.
I'm so delighted. Also that you found that, and makes me happy.
Well, I'm about to do a mini quiz in a second. We're
Oh
not going to go
no.
over the whole of this game, but there's a mini quiz because there's
Okay.
absolutely such an interesting move played in this game, and I'm going to see if you can guess it.
Okay.
I'm hoping I'm not. Maybe you can obviously see the moves to this game, but close a blind eye to these moves because in a second we're going to do guess a move, and we're going to get our audience to pause and see if they get the move played. So here we go. E5 was played, but in this particular game, White played knight d e2. Now, I seem to recall when we discussed here, I said this is actually kind of the right track rather than being on here for the knight because it's on the track to control d5. But on the other hand, it looks a bit naff here because he can't come to f4 to get to the outpost d5. And of course, it simply obstructs the bishop.
Yeah.
So White was what rating was White? White was a 2300 player, so not bad at all. But they chose to go knight e2. Bishop did come to e6. And so White thought, oh, how am I going to get my knight to d5 now? Well, they thought, well, I better play it straight away then. So they played knight d5, which allowed the similar imbalance that you got in your game, which is bishop takes
Wonderful.
knight.
That's what you want to see when you're playing black. That's my feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, you get a nice little imbalance here, don't you? Because you know you've got potential for these pawns on the king side. You've got a half open c file. Okay, White's got the bishop pair, but you're hoping maybe if the dark squared ones get swapped off at some stage, you'll leave White with the worst of the bishop, the light squared one. Black played knight bd7, and White here, probably not unsurprising in this particular position, chose to play c4 before now planning to put their knight on c3. And that adds extra support for d5 and reminds Black that, hang on, I have got a majority of pawns on the queen side. This seems very likely that White is no longer kind of castle queen side, of course. But now, this is it, okay? This is it. Now, this is a move, very interesting move for Black to play in this position. And I can tell you it's also featured amongst the top 3 moves from the engine here in this position here.
Wow.
Very interesting. Now, I think there'll be some obvious stand. I'm going to say, can you suggest some moves here? Everybody pause and think about what to play here. I've got a feeling I know the sort of moves that the audience would come up with, but it's probably not going to be one of those.
Okay. So I have 2 moves in my head.
Yep.
I like the one. So of course h4, but I don't think it is that one. But h4
right.
is
Can I
of
just
course
say?
fun.
Can I just?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it one at a time. I can see why that might be an interesting, appealing option. Yeah. We know how that binds down on the g pawn and opens up the h5 square for a knight or potentially even a rook to come into. Yep. h4. I'd say that's certainly a consideration.
But I think, or my favorite at the moment is e4.
E4, okay, yeah, because you're hoping to maybe get the knight in there.
I would like to get the knight to e5, and if the pawn just passes on to f4, then yeah, my knight can have a nice spot on g4.
It might be able to, although maybe bishop d4 and then h3, yeah, possibly.
D4,
but I understand why you want to do that.
Bishop
The
d4
question
is a
whether
problem.
can I just say I think that's a serious candidate move. E4 and h4, yeah, other moves.
And then I'm out of book.
Well, I can't believe, come on, you're going to suggest some things like rook c8, surely. Is that not?
Yeah, of course, rook c8. I mean,
maybe someone over there is going to think, whoa, what about b5 to try and undermine that
b5
c4?
is funny. Knight b6 is...
Knight b6 feels a little bit loose to me.
Yeah, maybe too
loose.
loose.
I don't think I really want the knight on the b6. But of course, you could argue bishop e7, or you could argue bishop g7. Now we know that potentially, just like in a King's India, we know that diagonal will become open at some stage later in the game. Okay. So all of these moves seem very plausible. I mean, someone will come out and say, "Oh, what about a5?" Now it's all about controlling the c5 square, maybe to stop White going b4.
So
yeah,
plenty of options. Yeah.
Yeah, so many options, but none of those moves were played.
It's going to be rook g8, isn't it?
Rook G8.
No,
I'm not
apparently
sure I
not.
would
Okay,
put that amongst
never
my
mind.
list.
Never mind.
Yeah. Edit out, edit out. So Rook G8, not so much. Okay, are you ready for it?
Yes,
I'm going to play it.
please. Well, that is crazy, isn't it?
That is crazy, but I can tell you, it ranks around about number 2 in the
That
options
is
where,
so
and
cool.
already it considers this position to be equally minusculely better for black. Incredible move. Knight G8 played
Knight
here.
G8 goes to Knight E7, goes to F5 with an absolutely beauty award.
That's one way. Alternatively, he's just getting ready for the next game, setting up the pieces. Actually, no, or no. So there's two other main reasons for playing that move. I noticed you spot that little maneuver, knight e7 to 8 f5, and I do agree that would be a nice square for the knight. But there's two other very simple reasons for going knight g8, and this is all jokes aside.
It
Well,
is
it's
F5,
always
right?
difficult for me to put jokes
Yeah.
aside, but I will try on this occasion. So the first and foremost obvious way is you are now out of the way of the f pawn to
Mhm.
roll it down the board. So you can sort of say, here I am with my
Wow.
majority of pawns, controlling the squares, particularly controlling the e4 square, which is a white knight would like to park itself on that square permanently.
Oh.
And the other reason, oh yeah, facilitating bishop h6 to trade off the dark square bishops.
Oh.
So two perfectly good reasons for playing knight g8. Now, normally you would say this is nuts. I've only got one piece developed. You could say, is this a closed position? Is this an open position? It's kind of a little bit of both. In an open position, you would never undevelop. You want to get all your pieces out as quickly as possible. In a closed position, you can. It's all more about the quality of development than the quantity of development. But still, you think maybe that's pushing it. But knight, yeah. Now let's see. We're not going to go over the game, but we're going to look at the next few moves. This is how it considered. White played knight c3. Fair enough. One of the sneaky ideas, what I love about this is, and this refers to what you said a little bit earlier. If white was now to play f4 in this position, then incredibly, black could just bring their knight back there and say, ha ha, you've now given those. I don't even have to have a pawn on e4. I can use that square for my knight, and I'm going to get the e5 square for my knight in the future. How clever would that? The ground being that knights can go forwards and backwards, but pawns, I'm afraid, they've only got one way. They can't go backwards. So that's one of the sneaky ideas. White played knight c3 and black played f5 here. Also, bishop h6 was possible. The game continued castles, and bishop h6 followed now anyway. And I think this is looking quite, very reasonable for black here.
Mm-hmm.
And within a couple of moves, white obviously thought, I need to do something radical here. What can I do? I can't make a pawn break c5. I mean, the white king's in the middle. I've got to open that center. I can't go c5 because obviously I don't even really have the bishop controlling because that's pinned to my queen. So he tried g4, but after h takes g4, f takes g4, and a trade of bishops, the move queen h4 was really sneaky. And now all of a sudden, black's pawns are looking awesomely good here.
Mm-hmm.
And the engine believes black has got a clear advantage already in this position here. So what a nice game of chess that was. And it was all inspired by yours truly, Arna. Everyone says, this Arna guy, he knows where
You
it's at.
don't want to tell me how it ended. Did black lose?
No, black won.
Oh, okay,
Black
good.
won.
Good.
Yeah,
Fine.
black won.
I thought that was.
It was a good game. No,
Okay.
I know you're thinking, should we go over the whole game? It wasn't all perfect chess from now on,
I
but
see,
it
I
was
see.
black won nicely.
But
And
that was, of
black's doing
course, So I need to go back 3 or 4 more moves because there was one thing which, yeah, exactly here. So instead of
Yep.
g4,
Yes.
what happens after f4? So that would open up the middle a bit. This was my concern just now.
Yeah, I mean, it would do actually, but I would imagine after f4. Okay, so I would play inclined to do maybe what we just discussed before, maybe the knight f6 option.
Oh, that's so easy, right? Yeah. You don't even have to worry that it's because you can always take back on e5. Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
you can
yeah.
do
Okay.
that. Yeah, so I think
That
yeah,
makes
I wouldn't.
sense. That makes
I don't
sense.
think you need my point is I don't think you don't need to go e4. The problem in general with going e4 is that it means the d4 it's all about outposts really.
Mhm.
And the problem with this move here is now the white has access
Exactly.
to this square, but black doesn't have access to that square.
Yeah, that
So
was
I
my
would
concern. Yeah.
I
So
would maybe keep the tension here
gotcha.
somehow.
Okay,
Knight
cool.
f6.
Thank you.
So
Perfect.
But other than that, good. Now we're returning back to the main game here.
Yes.
Bishop g7, which looked like being a dragon, and it was played f3. And now black played a move and a system that I just think is actually very, very reasonable. And maybe I haven't really spoken that much about it. And basically, it's the move h5. We know that Magnus has played this move on several occasions. And what happens is he now plays kind of Dragadorf style like this. So essentially, what's happened here is black has prioritized the move h5 over doing a b5 and a bishop b7. Yeah, he's prioritized it. It does not mean those moves are not going to happen. Okay, this is still what I would call a Dragodorfy system, but I think the deployment of the move h5 here is actually really good, because what used to happen in the original Dragodorf, if I could kind of rewind, so the original Dragodorf, when it first came out, typically saw black do moves like this, and even if white castle, we get bishop b7, and it's kind of like a system like this with black playing knight bd. I don't know, let's just put a move like this, king b1, knight bd7. And generally the idea is with this h7 pawn, white will wait for white, black will wait for white to go h4 before going h5, or even after this, or wait for black to go h4, then definitely before that pawn makes it there, which is kind of awkward for black because it's awkward tension, black would definitely go h5. So that was the original deployment of the h pawn, was to say, I'm going to halt the progress of that h4 pawn. But when it's actually played earlier, like it is in this game, it's more proactive. It basically says, no, you're not going to be playing g4, that's for sure. And by the way, you're not going to be doing an early bishop h6 to try and swap off the dark square bishops. So essentially, black is prioritizing this move h5. But other than that, in this game, as you're going to see, it's pretty much Dragodorfy ways. So if we have a6, and over to white. This is it. So we know here, I know I've got some red arrows on the board at the moment. What is white going to do? What, by way of plans, the g4, h4, h5 is out the window for now. White could maybe go king b1, hold on for a little bit of a time, wait back, or bishop g5 to maybe relocate that bishop. But we know black's next moves are going to be pretty similar anyway. Black's going to go b5 and bishop b7 over the next couple of moves. So white played a move which looks to make some sort of progress, h3, which kind of gives chances to go either g4, not, of course, while the rook on h1 is unprotected, but g4 possibly for the future, or maybe to go f4 and e5 in the future, because the g4 square would at least be controlled by the pawn on h3. In any instance, black played b5, king b1 was played, and bishop b7. So black quite literally is just doing the normal sort of moves. Dragodorfy moves, having prioritized the move h5. So what is there for white to do now? Well, he played bishop e2. Doesn't seem to do a lot on that square, but of course it does connect the rooks along the back rank. So now maybe g4 is going to come into play. The problem, of course, with trying to go f4 is there's always going to be issues around this e4 point, currently attacked by two minor pieces of blacks. And once you throw a b4 into the equation now, it's just going to be a difficult move to arrange. However, you could certainly say that g4's a reasonable plan now. And that's why I have no doubt that the one and only Arna would play what move in order to thwart that sort of thing here.
h4.
And that is exactly the move that was played. We know, because of the amazingly of that, the introduction of the en passant rule means that g4 is not going to be looking so good here. And yeah, that just kind of like, yeah, thwarts all that, whilst also offering up the h5 square for access to a knight or maybe even a rook. White played bishop g5, which I think seems logical. Two reasons: potentially putting pressure through here, although it's a long way until they actually open up the e-file, and maybe even thinking, oh, can I take a little time out to win that pawn? So rook c8 was played, and here again white struggles for moves. Now white played the move a3 here just to stop black from playing b4. I know we're not really supposed to move pawns around our king in opposite side castling, but maybe it's not so easy for black to go a5 and b4 because, of course, that b5 pawn is under so much scrutiny at the moment. But I think what I believe is if white chose to be greedy here, I mean Queen E1, looking to snap up that H4 pawn, I think there'll be too much action elsewhere. For example, even here, I think we could see the knight, and in fact, actually after E5 now, that knight in the middle of the board will be in a bit of a pickle, actually. That E5 move, worth bearing in mind. I mean, originally in the dragon, you normally think, oh, don't even, normal dragons, you think, don't even think of the move E5. It's going to block up the bishop, it's going to weaken the D6 pawn, it's going to concede an outpost on D5. Number of reasons you want to think of that. But no, you should always have that in mind as a possibility. Does not mean you should play it at every possibility.
Is it
Now,
like it's trapped, right? It's gone, right?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
gone
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Well, maybe they can try to get some sort of compensation, but knight E6 or something, but it's gone. You are right. There are no physical alternatives other than sacrificing itself, which I probably would not be adequate. Now, let's return to the game, shall we?
Please.
A3. Now, what are we going to do here? Well, again, I think there's a number of sensible looking moves that black could play, but black chose simply to play the move knight
Yes.
E5.
My thoughts.
Which basically eyes up the c4 square. Now, there's essentially three ways that black can go. When knight goes to c4, if it does, it could either do it with the intention of recapturing with the rook on c8, or with the pawn to transfer the action to the b file to attack b2, or more likely, maybe even, is to get a maneuver like that. So you end up with a knight on c4, which would be totally juicy to get a knight on c4 long run. So that maneuver is definitely a nice maneuver. Over to white. What's white going to do? And again, tricky situation. White chose to play knight b3 here. Now, of course, you could say, well, surely that only encourages this, takes in here, and the knight would have to come back. That's definitely a possibility. I'm not going to lie. Although we've got to do a bit of clearing of the B file before we get mate on B2, but certainly possible. But here, instead, black just chose to play Queen B6. Now, remember, this game is a blitz game. This has been playing, and this is what I love about it. So you've got a 27-10 rated player with the black pieces just playing generally judgment moves. Okay, I mean, there'll be the odd bit of quick calculation for sure, and they are very good at making speedy calculations. But generally, it's judgment. And Queen B6, I like the idea of that move. Why? Comes off of the D file, takes advantage of the fact that the bishop is no longer there on E3. If the bishop did drop back to E3, then I think Queen could go to C7. Perfectly good square for the Queen as well. But obviously, white moved the bishop to G5 for a reason. Well, in actual fact, this is actually what happens in the game. And again, white just struggling for a plan here. If they go f4 again, when knight c4 happens, they're going to wind up with problems with the e4 pawn, of course, is going to be an issue. And the black king being in the center of the board has not been any sort of problem whatsoever. I mean, even when I return, I don't like to go back too far. When we talk about the knight e5 move, I would say there are other perfectly reasonable moves that black could have played here. Queen b6, for example. King f8 even. Once you've decided
Yes.
there's no way I'm going to castle king side, I may as well just go king f8 and keep it a little bit safer over there, a little bit out of the firing line, so it's not open ever to a knight takes b5, or an e5 won't be as much problem. Or queen a5, queen b6. As we saw, the game knight e5 occurred, knight b3 and queen b6. And white played bishop e3, queen c7, rook c1. So again, choices for black. Does black just go knight c4 and after the bishop takes, take back with the b pawn and then swizzle to the b file? That seems like a very plausible plan, but instead black just stuck with the kind of main often idea in this system, which is to get the knight to b6 and end up with the knight permanently on c4. If a black knight, ends up living on c4 permanently, that is going to be a serious problem for the white pieces. So white played knight to d5 here. I think even if sometimes white says, well, can I move the bishop so I'm not going to have to take on c4? But after bishop d4, there's bishop h6. We know that doesn't really achieve anything at all. So white played the move knight d5 in this position, and we get your famous little imbalance here. E takes d5. And yeah, I think it's probably fair to say with all things considered, the black's got a comfortable advantage here, maybe clear advantage, somewhere in between slight and clear, I would say,
Yeah,
in
I
this
would
position.
always prefer black here, even though white has the bishop pair and our king is not even castled yet, but that can still happen in one go.
Yeah, well, I mean, in fact, in actual fact, he chose a very simple way. I mean, this is what I, honestly, this is such simple chess now. So he played knight c4 immediately, which pretty much, given the pressure on b2 and the queen, he has to take it as well as the e3 bishop. And after b takes, very
Yeah.
simple. The knight has to move. Well, knight went to d4 and then very much c3. Why not?
Oh, yeah.
Very easy
And so much
peasy.
talk about the bishop pair, which I mentioned earlier, which was gone in this
Yeah, that's
jiffy.
gone. That was gone in a jiffy anyway, wasn't it? Takes, and now, of course, we take with the rook. Very simply, forking. We're winning a pawn already. And what has Black actually done in this game? Played a few Dragodorfy moves. Played
Yeah.
h4. Played h4 to stop g4. And White has just struggled to find a clearly good plan in this position. And White is not a bad White is not a bad player. Actually, in this game, White was rated 2,391. Okay, it's a blitz game, but clearly he's struggling for any sort of useful plan. Bishop dropped back to f2 under attack, and we said, thanks very much, we'll have that pawn. So we're a clear pawn up at the moment, but in fact, it's almost more than that. Where do we go here? Well, it makes logical sense, I would imagine, now to bring our knight into the game.
Oh.
Knight e5 looks well. Knight e5 looks good as well because that eyes up c4 and d3. He played knight
Ah,
c5.
okay. I thought about
I
castling, but there's knight c6, and that is
Yeah, you know what?
unpleasant.
Yeah. Well, actually, you're going to like that then. The whole horses for a move. One idea is, of course, once you move the knight, you'll have the option just to play king d7, which is keeps the king
Oh,
on board and gets the
that's
rook into
cool.
the game. I mean, let's face it. Why do we castle? Put the king into safety, get your rook into the game. There's only one of those reasons you want to hear,
Yeah.
which get the rook into the game. King's not worried. Knight c5 occurred in the game, absolutely fair enough, eyeing up a couple of squares, namely the d3 square and potentially the a4 square as well to win that c3 pawn. King b2 attack the rook dropped back here, and rook h d1, rook to c4. So basically, he's thinking of the knight check might come into play at some stage in pressurizing c3, and knight came into c6. Now here, here's where there's just the icing on the cake. Would have been nice in this particular position, but in actual fact, yeah, Black did your castling move here. Black actually did your castling move and said, I want to win the game in style and return that pawn on e7. But
Oh,
but
wow.
a cool move that I would have loved to have seen here would have been okay. So let me show you. I saw one possible variation here. Rook
Oh.
h5. Love that move now. So rook
Oh.
h5. So you're attacking the d5 pawn as well. And if, for example, rook e1 hitting e7, which might have been one of the main ideas behind knight c6, there's a nice little variation here. Rook takes d5. So obviously the rook could take on e7, fine, but this is what a variation I come up with. Loving this. Knight takes e7, offering discovered check options. Rook d2, a handy little fork. King b1, and now look at this. Rook b4 check. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Pawn takes rook, check, king there, knight checkmate. Loving it. The three remaining pieces on the board deliver checkmate. That would have been so juicy here.
In
So
the threat of this own like discovered check.
yeah, the only discovered check, but you only get one move at a
Yeah,
time
yeah,
in
yeah.
chess. That's the beauty of this game. So
Fantastic.
rook h5, I think, would have been better. He actually castled, returned a check. Sorry, returned a pawn, knight c6, and rook e8. But still, Black has got the huge initiative here, with all sorts of
D3.
pieces attacking c3, rook coming to the seventh rank, bishop d4 check, rook c2, and then knight a4 check. Great. King up to b3, and then we had a trade of rooks here. And okay, so what's going down here? We know, yeah, if he takes on c2, then he's going to lose the c3 pawn. In fact, straight away to the knight, or after a trade on d4, he's going to lose that pawn for sure. He took on c4, and in the same way, knight takes c3. Funny enough, whichever rook he'd taken would have had a bit of
Oh
symmetry by
my
the looks of it.
gosh.
Because and we're attacking the rook here. Of course, that's the
Yeah,
main
yeah,
thing
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. King b3. Well, what else does he do here? But we took the rook. He took that. We swapped off simple chess now. Not much going down. If he takes the bishop, then of course knight e3 check. We've got the choice of the d5 pawn or the g2 pawn. We're 2 pawns up in a knight and pawn endgame with an outside pass pawn. Game over. So he takes this here. But now, of course, a simple bishop and knight stuff here. We're a clear outside pawn up. And yeah, here we go. Can he get back to
Again,
stop
he's
that
like,
pawn?
yeah, take
No
the
chance.
pawn the second time. It's no problem. My pawn is unstoppable. Wow.
No, and that is it. And I thought that was just an amazing game of chess. It's
Very.
just a blitz game. That it's a blitz
Yeah.
game. No one blundered anything as such, and it was no swinging from white winning, black
Yeah.
winning, white winning. It was just black, very smooth game from the off, which I thought was pretty cool.
It is interesting. So this is what I'm noticing, and maybe it's just like 2 games. You cannot take all the knowledge about 2 games. You know much more about it than me, but and I hope at one point you will also deliver us this knowledge in a course. Fingers crossed. Nonetheless,
Okay, I'll do my
nonetheless,
best.
it feels as if this kind of Dragadorf versions are making Black be able to play quite effortless. There's a
Yeah,
lot
well,
of plans which are just working out. So you just
I
have to
think
figure out which is the plan to take, I guess.
what I think the other thing is just basically that just different systems. There's
Yeah.
alternative to the main Dragon lines. Absolutely. We've seen it. We've seen the Hungarian is so popular these days.
Mm.
The Vietnamese Dragon has got good results, not just because of yourself. There's other people contributing.
What?
And the Dragodorf, Magnus Carlsen, and various other players I've been playing this and it just seems so smooth. What I'm saying is, if anyone is out there stuck for an opening, you can do a lot worse with taking one of these. The Dragon in the past has been kind of a daunting. It's been a daunting system because oh no, I've heard I need to learn loads and loads of theory, otherwise I get crushed in 10 moves or something. I get checkmated down the H file and it's always horrible and all that sort of thing. And I have to admit, when you first learn the main Dragon line, you have to learn your stuff. Otherwise, if you don't, you can easily be horrible.
Been through
But
it,
then,
done that. I had 46% in my blitz games, and I played a lot with the dragon. So
I mean, but you thought that was terrible. But actual 46% is not that far
like,
below the black average,
I
is
mean,
it?
yeah. From okay, not from a black's perspective, but yeah, it's okay. I think, yeah, maybe it was 44, something in the 40s. At least I lost more than I won. That's what I wanted
Yeah.
to say. And
Yeah.
it
Okay.
took me 100 games until I got the hang of it.
No, that's right. But you need to do the work. But what I'm saying, something like Dragodorf, you don't actually even need to. You can just hop on it
Yeah, true.
straight away and just say, I'm not going to get checkmated. That's absolutely for sure. So let's progress. Keep an eye out for these breaks in the middle of the board. Don't let him get down the H file and just slowly develop and progress on the
Yeah.
queen side.
Yes, it's interesting. It's quite fascinating. I love it. Well, Chris, I mean, thank you for doing this show on your birthday. That took me completely by surprise.
My pleasure, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for your comments. We are very pleased and happy about you are participating in this show format. And yeah, I would say we see each other next month. Let's see if the candidates are playing a dragon. Until then.